How's it going, guys? We are going to be checking out the Osmo today. This is actually going to be a review, whereas my last one was the unboxing because I've had a solid week of work with the Osmo, filming in different situations, trying out the different things, and just kind of quality of life stuff. So let's start off with some of the things initially that kind of annoy me. The lens cap here, just from when you first pick it up, you'll notice it. The lens cap is super hard to pull off, and the way that in which these lock, I guess you could rotate it technically and do it the other way, but it's still like, I mean, it's still really, really hard to get off, and I do not like that. Another thing that you'll notice right away with the Osmo, just diving in, is the locking that they have for each of the gimbal points. So you can unlock them whenever you want, but if you unlock the wrong one or out of sequence, it's going to do that. So when you unlock it, make sure that you just follow the guides up top. Unlock this way, and then there's a little clip right here. You just hit that, and there it is. It's free. Initial feel on the Osmo is going to be somewhat cheap. It depends on what part you grab, to be honest with you. So the handle is rubberized here. It's just rubberized plastic. It does feel really good. The other portions of the handle, all this, is plastic, and it feels very light and very cheap. When we think of the Osmo, we got to remember that this is $649 for something that shoots 4K at 30 frames a second, which we'll get to later, but you have to remember that. So it is really, really cheap. I mean, they had to cut corners somewhere. And the controller, while everything works fairly well, I haven't had any issues with it. Nothing feeling it's going to break off. All the clicks, they feel solid. All the buttons feel really good. It responds well. It sits well in your hand. The placement of everything is very, very well thought out, but it does feel cheap, and something I wish that they could do in the future, like they do with the cameras, where you can upgrade to the different cameras or swap out for the Inspire camera. I wish they would make a base, because you can buy all these parts individually, right? Like you can buy this, you can buy the camera, all this stuff is individually bought. The handle is, I think, something like I want to say it's around $230. But the problem that I have is I wish they would make a handle that was $400 that was magnesium, or $350 that was, like, you know, heavy duty handle. Because while it does do a lot of things well, it also, I don't understand why it has an internal microphone and an external microphone. I mean, I get it's a device that is right between consumer and prosumer, not really professional. It is up there. This would be a good semi-pro thing. I mean, you could get away in the pro with it, but if you're talking film industry, you definitely want a different camera than this one. But this is definitely higher end, but it hits that line, and this is where I think it hit that line, is with this internal microphone. It's an internal microphone. It has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, so you can plug something in like the mic I'm wearing now, which is an Aspen microphone. And you can record straight off that. Now that, I think, is a neat feature, and I'm glad it was included, because a lot of times it's a separate adapter, it's something else for that. And that makes it really cool for something like weddings, where if you just want to plug in a quick microphone and hold it onto the side of it while you get your filming, you can do that. And I think that's a really cool feature that will pull in, that makes it one step that you don't have to worry about. It is a little strange, because if you're anybody who's anywhere near up where we are, right? You are up where you're in the professional world. You're past the point of trying to make it, and you've made it into the industry. The last thing you're going to do is use an internal microphone or record all your audio to this. You'd have another way of doing it. And so this is something, like I said, is kind of a holdover of that consumer era, I think. Prosumers can benefit from it, but again, I have a better external recorder that I can control more things with, that I would rather use and give the person than record straight off this. It's a nice nifty feature for run and gun, but I think that I would have rather have seen like maybe a handle without this option because I don't need it. This cell phone holder is incredibly solid. All metal, rubberized backs on it. It stretches, pulls out so you can fit your phone in there. It fits my Galaxy S5 with the case on it just fine. There's even more room to spare. I mean, you could honestly get a tablet probably in there if you wanted to. Very solid. It also connects, oops, I gotta get these stirrups in there. It also connects via this cool little adapter. Oops, as I hit the camera. It's really tight, there we go. So this is how it connects to it by this nifty little connector here. It's teeth so that it doesn't slip when it clicks into it, so it can't move. This is your only point, your mounting point. So this is where all accessories are going to go. So that means that you have that much handle to deal with, to knock on stuff, to get hit on something, if you want to mount this on something like a motorcycle, a bicycle, a car mount, anything like that. I don't know. I like it. I wish they would maybe include like a base. I think that would be something neat. Like if they included this base with, well, they can't because that's what the battery is, so that's dumb. I don't know. I just would rather have, I would like to see some way of either getting the battery off of it so we could just have this point to mount on something, and you'd have like maybe a cable or something coming with it. That would be kind of cool. Kind of like the wearable gimbals like Phaotech did. I'd really like to see that, just because I think those are neat. Granted, again, we're $640. What are you really getting for that? I mean, what you get is so much more valuable. We'll put this back on. I don't think I'll need it for when I do my testing over here, just showing you guys around. I'm not gonna need the camera, so. Anyway, let's turn it on. So it's gonna be weird because I have to hold it like this, but, whoop, there it goes. So now I think I don't know if it's in portrait mode or not. No, it's not, it's in flashlight mode. But as you can see, I mean, look at that. It's smooth and steady. Once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad to operate, to get it to turn with you, move with you and stuff like that. This one's gonna spin around though in this mode. But you can see that when you drag it, the camera tries to stay stable and smooth the entire time. It's really, really nice. Now, okay, so we'll bump it like this, set it on its foot. Hey, look at that, there you go. Got a little bit of a foot. So if we tilt up, it tilts backwards, you pull down, it goes this way. I don't know if it can go diagonally. I don't think it can. That's one thing I noticed. It can only do one direction at one time. It can't do both. So that is a huge creative limitation, simply for the fact that you can't do, those dynamic pans. You can only go this way, this way, this way. You can't come up and down and side to side at the same time. You can't get that nice Z-axis kind of thing to it, which is a little annoying. But I definitely have not run into that issue simply because, well, I haven't run into that issue as much as I thought I would, simply because you can pick up your hand and you can move your hand in that direction, so you can move your hand sideways as you're panning down, pull your hand to the right as you're panning, however you want to do it. You could figure it out, but there are ways around it. I just wish it was a little bit more, there was a little more control there. Speaking of which, so here if you double tap it, the camera points straight forward again, no matter what mode it's in, except when it's upside down. And when upside down, when it's in portrait mode, I believe. Or is it upside down? Let's see. Yeah, in portrait mode. So when it's upside down, that's what it does. When you turn it upside down, so it's right side up, we'll turn it back down. You see how it's facing that way? Okay. So if we flip it upside down, double tap, it looks back at us. Triple tap for selfie mode, and it looks forward. So that's something in the firmware I think that is bugged, or just, yeah. We're in portrait mode now, I believe. Nope, flashlight mode. What happens if you triple tap in flashlight mode? Okay, it doesn't do anything. Good to know. But yeah, so then you have your, after the joystick, it feels nice. It's really nice texture. It, if you ever used a PSP or even I think maybe a PS Vita, it has the same kind of joystick on it. Really, really nice. Like I said, wish it did diagonals, but whatever. You have the record button for video, you have your shutter release, and really the rest of it is controlled on the phone. If you used a DJI Go app before, it's really easy, really intuitive to use, and it's really nice. What we will do now is I will give you guys some test footage. All right, so now that we're back, we can discuss some of the limitations we see in the frame rates. So one of the big, we're gonna turn this guy off because I don't want to run the battery down. One of the big limitations that we find is that while it does do 4K, it's slightly under 4K. I'll put on the screen the annotation for the actual size difference. But 4K at 30 frames a second isn't technically 4K. It's close enough and works, but it's still not there. Another one of your limitations that you have is the 1920 by 1080, 120 frames a second, comes pre-slowed down. So what that means for you guys, if you haven't messed with this slow motion or you haven't done anything above 30 or 24 frames, when you shoot 120 frames, it comes in at 1920 by 1080 at 120 frames a second. You then slow that, you then would make a sequence built around a 30 frame per second sequence or whatever it is, and then you would divide the frame rate into it, figure out what you need percent you need to slow it down by, and essentially you would take that 120 frames a second and slow it down to your 30 frames a second. It already comes out of the camera at 30 frames a second. So it's already been slowed down. Another problem that you may have noticed is that when it crops in, or when you go into the slow motion mode, it crops in. It crops in on the sensor in order to get that frame rate. Now, I don't know if that's because it can't maintain the full power of the sensor because at 120 frames a second, or they can't sustain the data bandwidth needed for that, or whatever it is. Just know that it is not the same field of view that you will get in the other modes. Outside of that, one other gripe I'd love to talk about is this battery door. First of all, real cheap, but it doesn't click itself closed. That is so annoying because everything else on my pro camera gear I have clicks closed. The GoPros click closed. My Nikons click closed. The Sonys click closed. Like all the battery doors, done, close. Like, oh, it is just so annoying to have to do that. And like, I would have gladly paid $5 more to have that engineered into it. I am pretty happy about the price of the batteries. Now, the batteries are, as I read it right off of it, they are 980 milliamp hours. Generally, I get about an hour of battery life. It depends on what you're doing, but I generally get an hour of battery life. They're $35, which for the DJI, like official one from their store, that's nothing. And I will be very curious to see if some of the Chinese competitors come up with something better than that, because 35 bucks I think is pretty dang good for this one. Memory card slots located on the side of the camera here as well. I have had some people ask if the fan gets annoying. So there is a fan here, I'll show you. There's a fan here on the back, right there. Intake fan, sucks it in and it exhausts out here to this thing. And oops, there we go. I hit the lock. I mean, you can't, first off, you can't hear it on the internal mic, which was amazing to me. I mean, you can hear there's a fan on somewhere, but it's not like you'd think if you've ever used anything with a microphone and a fan on it, like a laptop. Super, super quiet and clear. They did a great job of isolating the microphone. I don't think it gets too hot. I've used it outside in the sun, inside, shooting for, you know, however long. I have not seen it overheat. We will see if someone else in a different environment, maybe theirs overheats, but mine has not overheated yet. This is actually a filter on the front. You can, as I manhandle this, I'm sure somebody's running over in their grave. You can take this off, see it twists off. And you can actually buy ND filters for this, which would mean you could do things like shooting at a lower shutter speed to get that really, really, really nice motion blur if you were shooting like a car. Or you could get cool photos where you can stop it down and you get a longer exposure with it and things like that. I have tried the photography. This isn't really a photography camera for me. It works really, really well. I'll tell you, it will use your phone's memory to store, it will use your phone's memory to store a panorama if you have it stitch one. It will stitch it and show it to you on your phone, and it will keep that on your phone's memory. It does keep it keeps the RAW files on here, but the pano will be on your phone. It's weird. That's kind of annoying. Again, the gap between consumer and professional sees that there are some weird things like that. But outside of all of those, outside of the negatives I've talked about, we've hit positives in here as well. Would I recommend buying the Osmo? And I think that that comes down to its intended use. Because for me, I work in advertising and I shoot a lot of television commercials, and quite often I am a run and gun kind of guy. I'm, you know, the only one. And you know, if you use, first off, most gimbals out there that you could use something like my Nikon D750 here on are extravagantly expensive and require a focus puller, and then require someone to, they require, basically it's a 3-job thing. Whereas this only requires one person to do it. It doesn't come out in a, there's no color, you can't change color profiles on this camera. You can't, like, you know, vivid, flat, whatever. It doesn't export in ProRes. It's a just straight H.264. You can get it in an MOV or in MP4, but they're the same thing either way. The frame rates are good on them. The color comes out really, really nice. It's really, really sharp. It doesn't flare very much, but there are just, I wish I could change the color profile and the sharpening and stuff like that. That would really help me out. I'd love that. But for what I use it for, it's not that bad. It's really, really good for the price. Again, we're talking, like, for my camera to fly it, you would need more than a pilot fly or something like that. You would need the Ronin from DJI, or you'd need a Movi, and both of those are thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So $600, where you take the hit, right? And I think that's all about up to what you're going to use it for. If you're going to be using this as like an action camera, it's not waterproof. It's not meant to be used for that. You can use it for that, but I mean, you got to remember, it's not. If you destroy it, you destroy it. It's not water resistant at all. Nothing. But yes, I would recommend this to somebody. If your intent is kind of like an amateur filmmaker, you just want to get into the stabilization thing, or you want a camera for trips, because this thing takes amazing panoramic photos. It shoots RAW. It also shoots video. It has selfie mode. The batteries are inexpensive, and it's really, really small. Plus, it can get you fantastic results from it. So I think that this bridges the gap nicely between consumer and prosumer. This is not a replacement for a professional stabilized device or anything like that, but I love this thing. and I can't wait to keep using it more and more and more and just see what we can do with it and kind of push the limits with it and see where it ends up. So yes, if you're in the market for something that you want to make amateur films with, or you just like a really, really nice travel camera, this is one of them. This is what you buy. This thing is amazing. But I highly suggest you compare other people's reviews. You look at the specs, you look at everything, and you make that decision. Stay tuned for the latest videos. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and we'll see you guys next time.